welcome to this ROV chat, which Stephen and I will discuss body voltage and how it relates to health and energy and meditation and awareness as well. So we've been reading this book called Healing is Voltage by Dr. Jerry Tennant. And it's just a fascinating paradigm shift for how to look at the human body, how to look at health, how to look at energy. And so we thought we'd just talk a little bit about the basics of what Dr. Tennant's talking about, the kind of work he does, and then how that relates to our morning practice of meditation, what we do before that, and how it relates to the body as an energy system, as an electrical system. So Dr. Tennant starts off with the idea of pH, and pH is a measure of the voltage in water. And in a similar way, pH is a measure of the voltage in our cells. And healthy cells have a pH of about 7.4. And that relates to a voltage of minus 25 millivolts. Okay, so what that means is that there are electrons available to do work when your cells are healthy. And as the cells lose voltage or they don't have enough charge, that's when you start to become susceptible to illness, and that there's a scale that goes all the way down to a plus 30 millivolts, which is when cancer can take hold. So as long as your voltage is high enough in the organ systems and in the cells of the body, then you're in a state of health. It's only when the cells lose voltage and electron stealers, they're positive. So they're going to attract electrons to them. Whereas when you have negative voltage, it means that you have extra charge and your cells can do all the work that they need to do. So it's really very fascinating to look at the body as an electrical system and to see that the health of the body and also the energy in the body and the energy for your brain and all the organs in your body to function is a result of the voltage that we're holding in the cells. And then a second really fascinating point about this is that the connective tissue system in your body, the connective tissue that wraps around all your muscles, all your organs, is like a suit of connective tissue in your body, is a pathway through which information and electrons and electricity travels. So each cell is connected to this lattice work of connective tissue, and it communicates information about its voltage through the connective tissue system, through the vagus nerve, through the enteric nervous system, up to the brain. And this is what tells the brain what resources to send to that area of the body. So it's this whole electrical communication system, which is intimately involved in your body's sensing what it needs where, and to your body's vibrance and energy and health. So Stephen, that was what I was really excited about, and then we can talk about how that relates to subtle energy meditation as well.
Yeah, Kevin. So Kevin, exactly. I mean, I was really excited about it as well. When I read about Dr. Tennant's work, it occurred to me, a number of things occurred to me. First, on a very basic level. So if we look at that pH level that's deemed a healthy level for us or for the cells to be at. When I was quite young, as a teenager, I had a friend who was a naturopath who said exactly the same thing. It's really important for the cells to be healthy, therefore check your pH level. So we used to do this regularly. And so I had a kind of more traditionally alkaline system. And I've noticed over the years, for example, just in terms of the simple energy and voltage that is in food, that so long as I eat particular types of foods and retain a primarily alkaline diet, that keeps my body system very stable. And in fact, I can introduce other types of foods and my body instantly will reject it. It's almost like the energy system itself recognizes what's positive and what's not. And in terms of, and then if you look at, for example, emotions, which Dr. Tennant also goes into about positive and negative emotions and the way that they influence the system. And if we view emotions themselves as adding to or changing or even reducing voltage, then you know, and I'm sure everybody listening can recall an experience where a really heavy emotion comes upon them and they feel that depression. I mean, we've only got to look at the pandemic at the moment to realize what a large global effect certain things like health and isolation and can make to our energy system. So there's not just the food, there's also the way that emotions have an impact on voltage and energy. And then you look at other, external factors such as toxins and pesticides and so on. And that's where you realize that, the food that we eat and the types of environments that we live in are incredibly important for the body as an energy system, because they can actually seriously impact the voltage of the cells and in fact, environmental toxins. So things like mold, for example, or can actually seriously impact a body's healthy operating system. And it's interesting when you consider that, chronic disease itself really only occurs when the cells cease to have an ability to create new cells, or when the body ceases to have the ability to create new cells. And to create new cells, as you said, the body needs sufficient voltage, which primarily is in that range. He referred to the minus 50 microvolts of energy as being
when you're
regenerating. So he gave a brilliant example of, you hit your thumb with a hammer and the thumb itself starts to go into all different shades of color, and you say words that you don't mean to say because the body's trying to do something. And then everything that it takes to make a cell, if you've got that already in the body, then the thumb that has been flattened with a hammer, which I have done, it's all the different colors and shades of that thumb and everything that it takes to make a cell, if it's working healthily, actually start to come into operation. The body kicks in and it naturally starts to recover, because it's the energy in the system is enough and sufficient to create an environment where new cells can be created. And that's what we're normally accustomed to. But in chronic disease, the body doesn't have sufficient voltage, and therefore it's not in an environment which can create the new cells. And I thought this was really this is obviously crucial for all of our health, but the body's not just dealing with that at the same time. And this is where, I go in the example of mold, for example, which I've had in a house some years ago, is that if the body's having to deal additionally with toxins, environmental toxins and so on, it can actually really inhibit the body's natural propensity to create new cells. So I thought this was all really, important. I remember some years ago, a dentist, Dr. Tennant also mentions about the importance of teeth. And I know we're going to get onto this in terms of the energy systems and meridians and acupressure points. But the dentist said to me gratefully many years ago, well, you've got this mercury from when people used to put mercury in teeth. And of course, that's a heavy metal, which can really seriously affect the toxicity of the body. So he said, look, I recommend that you just slowly replace them all, which I did do. And that can, you did the same thing. Yeah. So, dental work and, the way that he compared the to the generation teeth to like the car battery that sort of then eventually affects the entire running of the car when the car battery starts to deteriorate. Thought that was an excellent analogy, because definitely, you know, the ability of the body to run its electrical systems efficiently does depend on certain key factors in the body. And one of them he mentioned was teeth, and the way that the teeth actually, because of the roots in the jaw and the way that that infections can actually spread through a body just simply from teeth. And he referred to cancer patients and found that, you know, 95% of the cancer patients had significant trouble with teeth, and he goes into that in detail. But I thought there was an interesting factual reference about just simply about the importance of hygiene and dental hygiene and the way that we treat our bodies, because I think that to a certain extent you can easily overlook and forget certain really key parts of the electrical system. So the food, and which obviously also affects your teeth, and the environment you're in, the toxins that are in the environment, and the degree to which you're exercising daily, and, you know, creating
that was a big one.
Environment. Yeah, that was a huge one for me.
Movement of he talked about the limbs as like stacked batteries, and when you move the limbs, that actually charges the muscles and charges the connective tissue, and that feeds all of the organ systems of the body. So daily exercise is key. Yeah. And to energize the body, to bring more voltage into the body, which is, that kind of segues into what we do prior to meditation, especially when we're doing subtle energy meditation, where we're really focused on feeling these sensations of flow of energy, of electricity through the body. Doing some type of movement prior to meditation is a way to prime those circuits with energy and electrons that you can then feel and you sense. And that flow of energy in the body, not only does it feel good and it's energizing and relaxing, but it also fuels your attention so that you can feel what's happening, you can focus your attention, and you can feel these energy centers, these meridians, these energy pathways, and that's a pathway into deep absorption in meditation.
I know he's certainly, you know, in the talk that Dr. Tennant gave, he spoke a great deal about the Chinese meridian systems and energy systems, and both you and I have had training in it. I did training in kinesiology and you did training in Qigong, and I know that was invaluable for me. I opened my eyes to the power of the energy systems and also the way that we work on it. So one thing that I found, you know, very uniquely similar to both Chinese energy systems and a lot of the yoga that I do, for example, with Yogananda, is that in the Chinese energy systems, there are acupressure points, which both you and I do, you know, stimulate during our morning practices in order to encourage this flow of chi or prana through the meridians. And Yogananda similarly has points in his energization systems where he taps and connects and wakes up certain energy points in the system. So I thought this was Yogananda's energization exercises are primarily, you know, all about tense and hold the muscle and vibrate and exercise the power of will and generating energy into the muscles and holding them and then releasing them. And that works with the muscle's natural piezoelectric effect, because it always made me very curious over the years that there were so many similarities between a battery, for example, with a positive and a negative point, and the Shiva, you know, positive, and Shakti, feminine, at the base of the spine, and the way that Yogananda used to talk about this as, you know, a rotating energy through an energy circuit, and the way that most of these ancient practices do raise energy, lower energy, raise energy, and are in effect creating a negative to positive, negative being Shakti and down in the base of the spine, positive. And in fact, when you look at any of the systems, even today, like Dr. Joe Dispenza's systems, which, where he gets people to tense that perineum and draw energy up the spine and basically squeezing that, using the effect of that piezoelectric effect to really quite some deeper dynamic effect in the body. And it's the same with Kriya Yoga. I mean, I always found it, I know Joe Dispenza has done Kriya because he mentions it in his books. And I know that that's when I've done his exercises and yoga, they're one and the same thing for me. And that was really very empowering because he explained a way of using that that fluid in the spine and using the muscular system and the whole negative and positive terminal in the same way that, for example, Tantra uses the energy to unite Shakti with Shiva in the crown. And additionally, in the LLP sequence, we teach people how to use the Taurus breath, and that is in the same way as drawing energy up the spine, liberating it through the crown, and the way that recharges the battery of the body, just if you look at it in simple terms, I think it's extraordinary. It's always left me in awe whenever I do this. And these days with a simple single breath, that it feels quite heavenly. It's like you're touching into the current of flow in the cosmos itself, and it literally feels like that every single breath. And it's just the gratitude and awe and precious nature of the things that we do together and that we teach people, but that people can avail themselves through this kind of exercise is just really incredible, very amazing. So so the piezoelectric effect and the way that the body works as a series of four, he talks about, Dr. Tennant talks about 4 battery packs and charging these, the way the body is stacked like a series of batteries. I thought that was brilliant. It was a wonderful way of explaining.
And it was amazing to me. I'm reading this book by this medical doctor, and he's talking about, and he's measuring this electricity too, his devices that he's measuring the electrical flow. And then we turn over the page and he's talking about the negative pole at the perineum, the base of the spine, and the positive pole at the top of the neck, and the cranial sacral pump that's pumping fluid, cerebrospinal fluid up the spine, bringing electrons from here up to the brain. And it was just amazing to see all the parallels to what we're doing with somebody coming from a completely different background and orientation, and actually measuring this electricity in the body. So I thought that was pretty exciting to see, because we keep talking about, well, how do we measure this, right? How do we measure it? And here's somebody who's measuring it. He has these devices that he can measure the energy of the different organ systems and the different poles in the primary battery. And then he also has devices that he can affect the flow of current. We're using exercise and meditation to affect the flow of the current, and to release disruptions or tensions that restrict that flow. And that's really what subtle energy meditation is about.
I think one of the very empowering things about subtle energy meditation, going back to the acupuncture and meridian systems, is that when we concentrate a lot on the dantians and the 3 basic energy centers of the Chinese medicine system, and we also refer to the chakras and the 7 basic energy centers, which are referred to in yoga and a lot of Tibetan Buddhism, although Tibetan Buddhism uses 5 energy centers. So there's lots of different ways of looking at energy. the crux of it is that they are all talking about energy centers, talking about centers of energy that exist within the body. And so when you really look carefully at the subtle energy sequence that we use, we focus on, first of all, empowering the lower dantian. And there are a lot of ancient techniques, whether you look at Tumo and inner fire, or you look at holy fire practices in general, they all talk about the importance of activating that part of your battery system. You know, if you want to look at the body as a battery, you're really firing up the negative terminal to begin with. And that's crucial because your body's got to have energy. I love the interview we did with Cody Rowell, where he talked about the realization of this importance of the energy system and generating enough energy so that, for example, if you are meditating, as I've done over the years, 8 hours or more, or even an entire day, you actually have enough energy in the system to maintain it, so that when you are actually sitting in this effortless, natural, open presence and a relaxed state, that it actually is truly natural and effortless, which means that the body and its energy systems have to be in balance. So the lower dantian plays, an enormous part. And again, it doesn't matter whether you look at Kriya or Tumo practices or any of the other ancient secret practices, which are all involving that negative terminal, the Shakti base or the Kundalini force. They're actually all talking about generating energy there. And I know, in Dan Brown's own pointing out the Great Way practices, he's spoken about the benefits of how Tumo or inner fire practices actually accelerate the path, whatever path you're on. And again, that's, if you look at energy systems, that's looking at the power of this battery pack that is the human body. So then when you go to the
in the lower dantian, that's like the vital energy center that fuels the whole process, and then fuels being able to stay awake and alert and go deeper and pay finer attention in the subtler layers of awareness. It all starts with that vital energy that's generated first with deep breathing, with movement and exercise, and then deep breathing and gathering the energy and then drawing it upwards.
And I think one of the really crucial things that they talk about a lot in yoga, for example, is that anywhere in your body, if you have blocks in your energy system, especially in that central channel, then as the energy starts to rise, it's simply not going to keep going. It's going to
it's something.
It's a block. So, and again, so when you start to move, now from the lower dantian to the mid dantian, you move into the heart. And a lot of people that I've trained with or trained over the years, just as you have, when you get to different areas like the heart or the throat, there's often a constrict. People can feel that when they start to be aware of the energy centers, they often talk about, oh, I feel, I get to the throat and there's this kind of hesitation or resistance. So that, when you look at a circuit, an electrical circuit, when there's a resistance in a circuit, it's very easy for it to be overloaded, or just simply the current can't flow. And Yogananda used to talk about that a lot as well, with all the bandhas or locks that you can do to unlock the system. And in terms, so going back again to the meridians, when you look at the importance of some of the meridians, like, the central nervous system meridian or the gallbladder meridian, you start to realize these energy flows play a critical point in your life support system. And again, going back to Dr. Tennant, he refers to the way that your teeth and for example, your feet and your toes there's a connection running right the way through your system that actually affects different parts of your body. So one part, a tooth decay in a particular tooth will affect a certain part of your eye, which will affect a certain part in another area of your body, and also then affect a certain part of your, affect certain organs. And I thought that when I was listening to him, and I was also contemplating the work we were doing, I was thinking how really important that we've simplified in a way into the Dantians, but if you wanted to go further, and I'm thinking certainly in terms of the new book that we're writing, there is a great opportunity to inform people more about the interrelationship of the Dantians to the meridians and to the way that energy flows through those. Because certainly I've found that over the years that, you know, simple things like if you get a headache, there are certain points in your body that you can press and you can feel with vigorously, for example, you know, using the point between the thumb and the first finger, by vigorously activating that acupressure point, you can relieve the symptoms of a headache. And an understanding of the interrelationships between those points are really crucial. When I was doing kinesiology as a practitioner, you know, some years ago, it always used to amaze people that they could feel a headache, but I would touch a point in their leg, for example, just below the knee or in a finger, and they could feel it. They could feel the connection, and then I'd hold it and do a certain, you know, vigorously applying pressure, and it would relieve it. And they'd be stunned. They'd say, "But that, how do you know? How does it?" I say, "That's because there is a link. You know, do you think the body's? Do you think your head's disconnected from the rest of your body? It's kind of all interconnect." And you know, going back to Dr. Tennant, the for battery packs and the way that the body is layered like a series of batteries. I thought that again, it's such a crucial point for subtle energy systems.
And he talks a lot about posture in that way too, how the head, you know, each of these posture points that we use in meditation relate to aligning the spine and aligning the energy system so that energy flows freely. And then all of us have different tensions and stored memories and stored emotions. And then very simply using pressure and vibration and stretching and movement to release those tensions is a way to facilitate opening up that fuller energy flow. One of the things I learned in the very simplest thing as a takeaway that I learned in my Eastern Healing Arts certification, where we were doing Tui Na, which is basically acupressure and stretching, is that when you have a pain, just go right to it. Go right to it and ask your body where that point is, and your body intuitively, because your whole system is connected and through this connective tissue system, and your brain is connected to that, ask your body, where is that point that you need to release, and just put pressure there and tune into that point and use a little pressure and vibration and movement and breathe into it. And just ask your body, what is being held here? What emotion, what is the resistance that is there? And breathe through it, just bring awareness to it, bring mindfulness, so you're just paying attention on purpose in the present moment, without judgment, just observing with curiosity. And you just stay with it until you start to feel a little release and a little bit of opening. Our bodies into them the predominant Western allopathic medicine, which is if something hurts, we want to just get rid of that. We want to get rid of that pain, take something so it goes away. But in subtle energy meditation and in subtle energy medicine, we're saying, no, let's bring attention to it. And let's use awareness. Let's use the natural intelligence of the body and work with it through breath and attention and relaxation and awareness to become aware of what's held there and to allow the body to let it go.
I think that's a wonderful takeaway, and so I'll add one as well, Kevin. The one I have always loved from Yogananda is it's very similar, but it's related to the head. And he always said, that to wake up the brain in the morning, you bring awareness to these points on the head. So he'd start with the back, and he'd just say, bring awareness to the medulla, right at the back of the head. Bring your awareness there, and you massage, bringing awareness to that medulla, and you say, open wide, awake, 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 open wide. And then he'd tap the skull and say, awake, son or daughter of God, or awake, whatever, awake, mighty saint. Or I loved all the expressions he used. They were really very colorful and very beautiful. And then he'd rub the scalp, so especially, and tap these points. So he did a lot of tapping through those energization practices, tapping the front, tapping around the temples, tapping at the back here, and then just come back to awake, 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 awake. It was just such a, always left me in this, semi-euphoric, very joyful, blissful state simply from doing these simple, they're really a series of acupressure points and a series of affirmations, bringing the will, bringing the awareness into this one that has predominantly a lot of our identity attached to it, and where we're so, as when you wake up in the morning, sometimes you can feel flat, you can feel blah, as Muji says, don't make that your whole day, just make that a single moment. And then when you do something like this, even if you're having a blah moment, you can wake it up, you can remind yourself truly to bring your awareness there and what's really going on, and wake up to a really beautiful and vital day. So I always loved that. It was a great reminder for me of how to energize first thing. So that was
I will concur with that. I highly recommend doing those pressure points and the massaging and the tapping and everything prior to meditation. It really wakes up the brain and wakes up the energy. So, Stephen, thank you for this chat.
Kevin, thank you too. That was really wonderful. I always love our chat. So thank you to everybody who's listening. We're really tremendously grateful for your company.
Yes. We thank you all for your engagement in your practice, and we'll continue bringing more of these interesting insights and also measurements and science to the practice of pure energy and awareness. So until next time, enjoy your practice.
Lots of love and blessings always. Bye for now.